Leonardo da Vinci once said, "Water is the driving force of all nature. Life doesn't exist without it. Without water to drink, we would perish in 3 to 5 days." Of all the water on Earth, less than 1% is fresh, usable water in lakes, rivers, marshes, and aquifers. Drought is a major cause of water deficiency. In 2002, our area suffered a drought lasting 11 months. It's easy to see the effect of drought on surface water. This is Lake Oroville in California in 2011. Here it is today in 2014 at 32% of capacity. Aquifer depletion, though less visible, is even more serious. There is 60 times as much fresh water stored underground as in surface lakes and streams. Stretching from Texas to South Dakota, the Ogallala aquifer is being drained 8 times faster than it can naturally be recharged. This is the source of water for our Midwestern farmers. A water grab is the diversion of water resources and watersheds by companies, governments, and individuals, which deprives local communities who depend on water and ecosystems for their livelihood. Water grabs are a growing problem around the world. In April of 2000, the US-based Bechtel Corporation and other private investors had taken over Bolivian water systems that had been built by the people over many years. The corporation was trying to charge the citizens for their own water. The Bolivian government had signed a lucrative contract with the company. Thousands of people from the countryside came to the city to protest, and the Bolivian army battled the citizens of Bolivia, protecting the company's interests. Many Bolivians were shot by the army, but eventually the citizens won, driving the corporation out of their country. Does one company have the right to take water for its own profit from a community without compensation? Landenberg is a small historic town in southern Chester County, Pennsylvania. Downtown consists of a hotel, a store, and a church. There are houses small and large, new and old, some dating back to the 1700s. Here in Landenberg, we are truly blessed with our supply of clean water. The White Clay Creek National Wild and Scenic River runs through Landenberg, attracting wildlife and people alike. Marcus Samuelson said, "For many of us, clean water is so plentiful and readily available that we rarely, if ever, pause to consider what life would be like without it." Many Landenberg residents grew up here or chose this area for its beauty and healthy air and water. Landenberg residents are concerned because a Delaware-based water company is planning to pump large amounts of local water out of a well they obtained the rights to years ago. Marion and Jane Wagner are the initiators of our recent Save Our Water movement.
We moved here in 1999, and right after we moved, there was a fairly severe drought, and so we were quite concerned about our well and did the things to conserve water and so on. And we saw petitions that Save Our Water had at that time, signs I'm talking about, and we were just sort of on the periphery of that. Never did do anything about it, and nothing ever didn't happen after that until right around the end of 2013, when Artesian sent a letter around to area residents who were within half a mile of the well. We didn't get one. A resident supplied us with one, indicating that they were going to have a pump test sometime in 2014, and they were going to talk about rates up to 200 gallons per minute, which equates to 288,000 gallons per day. And we were quite alarmed by this because we both grew up on farms, and we have been through several droughts back there where our local wells went dry, and we had to worry about that and about our livestock and just water to drink. So this is very concerning, since we knew that some neighbors around us had some problems back after we went moved in here in 1999. We didn't have any problems, but some of the neighbors did. So that's when we decided to oppose this and decided, well, let's just use the name that we used before. Save our water seems like a good phrase, and so that's how we started.
Currently, we have over 1,200 petitions. This is just a few. We just receive petitions almost every day. We get them in our post office box, and we have a support from not only the people of New Garden Township, but the neighboring London, Britain, and Franklin, who we have to be worried about this also. Just since they are a public utility, they can just go on to London, Britain, and on to Franklin and find somebody to give them the rights to drill a well, and they will just be draining the aquifer out from under all of us.
Let me describe 4 main reasons why we believe this shouldn't, artesian shouldn't be allowed to proceed. Number one, as Jane's already mentioned, we're quite concerned about the precedent. The very bad precedent was set if the local ordinances were overridden. That what could possibly open up the territory for expansion of artesian to other wells, as Jane mentioned. Second of all, we're concerned about the fact that area residents here in our township and elsewhere might start to suffer additional problems, where they already have problems, sometimes in normal conditions and especially in drought conditions. And the third reason is that we're quite concerned about the effect that this may have on the Broad Run Creek and in turn the White Clay Creek. White Clay Creek, that whole system is a nationally protected wild and scenic river. We believe it deserves some special consideration. And the final reason is that most of the residents here, half of the residents are on public water and they have sewer, and so they really constitute no net load to the aquifers. The rest of us are on wells and all have septic systems, and again the water comes out of the ground and it goes back in the septic system and eventually finds its way back into the aquifer. So that the biggest load, the only real significant load we have, is the local mushroom industry, which uses a great deal of water in composting. Now that industry contributes a net aggregate of $2.7 billion to the economy of Chester County. We don't want to see anything happen that would harm that industry, because not only do a lot of people depend on that for income, but that it has to do with the tax base. Our taxes would go up and property values would go down. So that would just be a very catastrophic event. So that's the 4 main reasons that we're very concerned about this happening.
Landenberg has attracted a number of environmentally friendly farmers who are an integral part of our community and our economy. First, we will visit Farmer Tom of Meadowset Farm.
My wife and I run Meadowset Farm, which is a 30-acre grass-based farm that raises grass-fed lamb and produces raw milk for Alpine-style aged sheep cheeses. In addition, we have an apiary of about 30 colonies and raise chickens. The purpose of the farm really is to educate and demonstrate that a family farm can be run sustainably. But in order to do so, it's critically important for us that we have an intact ecosystem, and water is obviously one of the key pillars of a grass-based farm. So a loss of the current groundwater table and aquifers would have a negative impact not only into the riparian buffer, but also in our economical viability, because our grasslands would be negatively impacted.
Next, we'll hear from Tim McGinty and Carrie Wiles from North Creek Nursery.
Our mission is to propagate and promote native plants to the horticultural industry, and we also service the ecological market. And we use this property as a living laboratory where we can plant and vegetate stormwater management basins, green roofs, rain gardens, and those types of environments, so that we can have customers and local neighbors come in and learn more about what we do and the plants that benefit those types of habitats. Evaluate anything that would be kind of as a potential introduction. We'll trial it for up to three years to kind of see how it performs in the landscape, test the hardiness throughout several seasons. So everything on the property is an experiment.
So we use beneficial insects here exclusively. We don't spray any harsh pesticides. If we need to spray something, it's an oil or a soap that we usually use. That's why we have so many butterflies.
So what would happen if you had to switch to public water?
We would most likely have to move the nursery out of the township because the cost of having to use city water, as well as the variability. We have no control over the quality of that water in terms of how it impacts our plants. We would probably pick up and move.
Next, we'll hear from Ruth Ann Clark, one of many Landenberg's concerned residents who loves and cares for her land.
We moved in August of 2006, and I love it. I go to work and I just can't wait to go home. We've got turtles in the pond. There's a little, I'm not sure if it's a painted turtle or a snapper sitting on the log. There are two giant snappers that are, gosh, as big as a dog that are in there that we see swimming around, and it's always fun to watch them mate in the spring. We have pileated woodpeckers. We have Cooper's hawk. This pond is a man-made pond, but it's fed by two streams that come in from the left, and then there's an overflow flow that runs all the time, so that this water continually is going into the branch of the White Clay Creek. And we found that even with the two wells, we weren't getting enough water and enough water pressure to actually live with not doing anything to the water. So we called in a well company, and the owner said that with the top well, we had two choices. We could either dig it deeper, which of course would cost a lot more money, or we could try fracking, which in this case is not like fracking for gas, but it's just sort of cracking the shale so that the water in the water table will run into the well. And that was a cheaper option. Of course, he didn't guarantee that it would work, but we decided we'd try that first. And we were lucky. It did work, and we got enough water pressure to maintain 4 people living in the house at a time. Well, the last 2 years, we've had a lot of rainfall, and of course, last winter we had all of that snow. So we haven't really had what I would call any real droughts, but certainly we've got, I guess it's been interesting this past year with the winter being so wet. We've been able to actually watch the natural change of the springs and how much water comes out of the springs. There's an area right behind that line of trees that used to only be wet like in the fall, and then in the summer it would dry up, but we've had extra water this year, and now it's actually made a little stream in there that's always sort of wet and soggy. But that's not always been the case. But up in the woods there are springs all along in the woods that come out of the ground. And of course, if they were to be, I guess, influenced by artesian coming in and taking water out of Chester County or out of Pennsylvania, it could cause these springs to dry up. If they dried up, then that would dry up water going into that other branch of the White Clay Creek.
What would it mean for your wells?
Well, it would mean problem for our wells. We'd either probably have to try to go deeper, and that would cost, I don't know, $7,000 to $10,000, I guess. That would not be good.
Is there any public water in the area?
No.
Why the renewed attempt to pump Pennsylvania water to Delaware? As development continues in Delaware, wells are being shut down. 13 wells have closed in Delaware due to pollution. Recently, the chemicals known as PFOAs have been found at unacceptable levels in 2 wells, which were then closed. PFOAs are found in flame retardants and used in the manufacture of Teflon. Presently, in the summer of 2014, Landenberg is enjoying abundant rainfall, and record snowfalls last winter filled the streams and aquifers. Is it a coincidence that this is the year that Artesian Water Company has decided to perform another well test?
Water shortages may come from droughts, but shortages can be a result of water pollution. Pollution certainly plays a factor in the water shortage in Delaware. As clean water becomes a more rare and valuable commodity, private water companies are coming for our water.